Hello, this is Robert, and in this video I would like to demonstrate a program that does a simple calculation. The calculation that I've chosen is a tip calculator. So it's just going to calculate the tip amount for a bill at a restaurant, for example. So I have two doubles set up, one for the total bill, and then one for the tip rate. And then I have a prompt here. What is the total bill? So I can use a cin statement right here to ask the user to tell me how much the total bill was. So cin total. All right. Then I need to know the tip rate. So I need another prompt to let the user know what I want them to do. Cout. What rate do you want to tip? Okay. And then I need another cin statement after that. So cin on tip rate. So now the user can tell me how much the total bill is and how much they would like to tip. Well, in order to do the calculation, we have two choices. We could multiply the total times the tip rate to get the tip amount, and then we could put that expression in a cout statement. I'll just do a simple example of what that might look like. I could do cout total times, which is the asterisk, tip rate, like that. Okay, so it's just a simple example. We could put the expression right there. But let's say that we would like to have the tip amount for a later calculation. So what we can do is whenever we need to save some information, the light bulb should go off in your head that you need a brand new variable, right? So if we would like to save this value somewhere, the first thing we should think is, I need a variable for that. And then the second thing that I should think is, what kind of variable? Well, the tip amount, it's going to be dollars and cents, right? Which implies a decimal point, so we should be thinking another double. Okay, so let's go ahead and create tip amount right here, and now we have a list of three doubles, a total, a tip rate, and a tip amount. So instead of cout right here, instead of sending that value to the screen, all I'm going to do is say tip amount equals, or is assigned, the value of the total times the tip rate. Okay, then all we need to do is send that information back to the screen to let the user know how much the tip will cost. Okay, so let's just go ahead and output the tip amount and then the end line. And let's give them just a little bit more information, right? So let's put a literal string right here, which means I need to start it with some double quotes. And then I'll say the tip amount is, and then I would like this to appear as dollars and cents, right? So, well, maybe not cents so much, but as a dollar value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dollar sign right there inside of the double quotes, and so now we will get a literal dollar sign right there. Okay, I've written some code, and that means that I should at least test my code before I write any more, because the more I write, the more chance there is that I've created a mistake. I don't see any red squiggly underlines, but that doesn't mean there are no errors in my code. There might be a logic error in my code. So it might run, but it might not run correctly. So let's test the code by running it. So I'm just going to click the local Windows debugger, and remember that that will build our program and launch it. Okay, so I do want to build it. And then the console window will pop up, or command line, console window command line. So it's asking me, what is the total bill? Well, I want to do a simple calculation here because I want to test my code. If I was doing a more difficult calculation, I would have to get out the calculator to find out if my program is running correctly. So I'll just give it something simple at first. So let's say the bill is $20, and I could say 20 just by itself. I'm doing input on a double. Notice that CN total right there is a double. So I can either type 20 or I can type 20.00. It doesn't matter. So that's $20. And then let's say, just to make it easy, I want to tip 10%. So I'm going to say point, or I could say 0.1, or I could just say 0.1, or I could say 0.10 for 10%. All right, so now I know that 10% of 20 is $2, right? So when I type return, I get the tip amount is $2. So that's a good test of my program. Well, let's add a little bit more to this program. We usually want to know the total amount of money that we should pay, right? So there's one more step. If we just use this tip calculator as it is, then we would have to add the $2 to the $20 total bill, and then we would have to, in our head, add that up as $22. Well, we can have our program do the whole thing for us. What we can do is we can add the tip amount to the total bill. Okay. So if we want to store the grand total, I guess you could say, which would be the tip amount plus the total, we could create a brand new variable. Or we could use the total to store the grand total. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it with a separate variable first, and then we'll redo it using just the total. Okay, so let's create one more double. So I've got 3 doubles right here, and so I might be thinking to myself, that's a lot of variables declared with one statement. So I could say, well, maybe 4 is my maximum. So I could add it right here, and I could say grand total. That's perfectly fine, right? It's not off the edge over there, but you might say to yourself, maybe I only want to have 3 on one statement, so I can create a brand new line, and I can say double grand total right there. Okay, so now notice that I have this red underline right there, the squiggly underline, and Visual Studio is doing its best to try to let me know where the error is. The error is not actually with double right there. It's actually right here at the end. We need a brand new semicolon right there, and now that error will go away. So whenever you see an error in your code that Visual Studio or Xcode or whatever IDE you're using, if it detects a problem, it could be on that statement, it could have been right there, or it could be on the line above. So whenever you see an error, don't forget to check on the statements that are above where your IDE has detected a problem. Okay, so now we have 4 doubles, a total, a tip rate, a tip amount, and a grand total. So what we can do is we can say anywhere after tip amount, right? So we've calculated tip amount right there. If I try to calculate the grand total right here, grand total equals tip amount plus the total, well, that's too soon, right? Because I haven't calculated the tip amount. I'm sorry, right here, I haven't calculated the tip amount yet. The calculation for the tip amount is on this statement, which means that this will be what we call garbage. It will contain a garbage value. I've declared it, but I haven't set it to any particular value. So I am using it before it has been initialized or set to a value. Visual Studio is actually one of the better IDEs for this, because if I try to run it, I don't see any errors in my code, but if I try to build it and run it, it will refuse to run, because it will reach this statement right there, and it will say that tip amount does not contain a valid value yet. So I now have an error in my code. So the answer is no. I don't want to run the last successful build because I want to fix my errors. So I click no. And then if I look on the error list down here, it says that uninitialized local variable tip amount used. So it was uninitialized. It's not set to a value yet. The great thing about these errors is it tells you which line the error was on. You can see it's on line 15. And then the other thing I can do is double click on it, and the cursor will jump right to the statement. All right, the fix for this is really easy. All I have to do is cut that line and move it down to the statement, to the line after I calculate the tip amount right there. Okay, so now I'm going to get rid of this empty line. And then I can output the tip amount right there. And then what I can do is I can output the grand total right after that. Cout the grand total is, and then a $, and then grand total right there. And then an end line statement. Okay, let's run this. Okay, so I'm going to click on the green triangle. And now the program is being built. If it is successful, it will start running. Okay, so what's the total bill? Let's do our $20 again. And then this time, let's do 3%. Or, I'm sorry, yeah, 30%. That's a big tip, but it's just an example, right? So 30% of 20. Okay, so that's $6. So the grand total is $26 right there. Okay, so we know our program is running, and it at least calculated our grand total correctly for this value, right? I'm not going to get into negative values or checking for negative values or checking for letters if they accidentally type a letter instead of a number. All of that stuff we're going to save for later. But let's go ahead and take a look at one more way that we could calculate the grand total. But this time we're not going to use this variable called grand total. This is a perfectly fine way to set up your program. There's nothing wrong with creating grand total right there, and maybe the code is easier to understand. But let's take a look at what we can do, and it's called accumulation. So we have total right here, and the user's going to type in the total, and then we're going to calculate the tip amount. Well, we could add the tip amount to the total and store that information back into the total. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my variable grand total. And then an error pops up. It says I'm using an identifier that is not declared, right? Grand total is undefined. So instead of saying grand total right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just reuse total. So it looks, let's rearrange this so that the total is on right after the assignment statement. So I'm going to cut that, and then I'm going to place it right over here just so it looks a little bit better. So total equals total plus tip amount. This is called accumulation. And so this kind of illustrates the difference between a variable that appears on the right side and a variable that appears on the left side. If it is a right-hand value, that means read the value of total. Okay, so I'll just put a comment here just to remind us what we're doing. Right-hand value means read. left-hand value means store, right? So remember how there are two aspects to a variable location? There are two parts to a variable location in RAM. One is the value that can be stored there, and that's what we're interested on the right side of the assignment statement. So we're going to be reading the value. And then on the left side of the assignment statement, we're interested in the address of total. So we're going to be taking this value that we calculate and storing it at the memory location using the address of total right there. Okay, so, and as I said before, this is called accumulation because we're taking what was there before, we're adding a new value to it, and then we're storing it back into the same location. Okay, so I can't have grand total here. I have to use total for this also. Let's go ahead and test our code now. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that error right there is going to go away when yep, there it went. Let's go ahead and build it and run it. And we'll test our code one more time. Let's say the total bill is $30 and we want to tip 20%. The tip amount is $6 and the grand total is $36. So this is the other way that you can do a grand total. You can set up a separate variable like we did the first way, or you can do accumulation like we're doing right here.